friends, I'm so glad you guys are back. It has been so fun learning about the 5 fabulous prophets of the Old Testament together. But guess what? This is our last week. Today we are going to learn about the 5th of the FAB 5. Can you guys remember the first 4? If you can, say them with me. Elijah, Elisha, Jonah, and then last week, Miss Bella taught you guys about the prophet Jeremiah. This week, we are going to be learning some fabulous things about the prophet Daniel. But before we do that, I want to show you guys something fabulous. I have a special talent just for you guys. Check it out. I know, it's fabulous. If you guys have a special, fabulous talent, be sure to tell me or show me in person next time you guys see me. Okay, before we start telling our story, make sure you guys have printed your comic book strip because as we go along, I'm going to be helping you fill in the blanks. Are you ready? Let's go! Number 1 of your comic book strip. You guys are going to want to start by drawing chains on the people's hands and feet. I know that seems kind of scary, but you're drawing those chains because God's people were taken into the enemy land of Babylon, and they had to serve the evil king, King Nebuchadnezzar. One of those people in the chains, you guys, was the prophet we're going to talk about today. His name was Daniel. You may have heard of him before. Daniel had 3 friends, who I'm sure you've also heard of before. Their names are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel were some pretty fabulous people. They were talented, they were smart, they were handsome, and best of all, Daniel had been given this gift from God where he could interpret dreams. That's awesome! When King Nebuchadnezzar heard about this, he was pretty impressed. So he invited Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel to try out to be part of his royal court. What that means is that if they were to impress him, that they were the best of all the people, they could be some of his top helpers. A pretty cool job. So for 3 years, Daniel and his friends trained and they learned and they studied the language and the culture of the Babylonian people. Now, in box number 2, you guys, you are going to draw food and drink on the king's table. That's because while being trained, these friends were allowed to eat and drink from the king's own table. And at the king's table was the best food and the best wine in all of the kingdom. So there's some pretty bad news though, guys. The food on the table had already been dedicated to the Babylonian god. So Daniel does something crazy. He goes to the king's advisors and he says to them, listen guys, my God forbids me from eating and drinking food that has already been dedicated to another god. He says, can you allow me and my friends to just eat vegetables and water? The king advisors think he's crazy. And honestly, I think he's kind of crazy too, passing up good food for just vegetables and water. They say, absolutely no way, Daniel. You'll become weak, and then we'll be in trouble. The king will be mad at us. Daniel proceeds to tell the king advisors, please, just give us 10 days. Test us for just 10 days. We'll eat just vegetables and water, and we'll see how it goes. And if it goes bad, I'll go back to eating the king's food and wine. So for 10 days, Daniel and his friends ate only vegetables and water. And guess what? They got even stronger and healthier than everybody else. Can you believe it? Remember that next time you don't want to eat your vegetables on your plate. And because Daniel and his friends had been so faithful, God continued to provide them with more wisdom and knowledge. And after the end of 3 crazy years, King Neb is so impressed with them that he decides to make them his dream team. He puts them on the royal court. And one night, you guys, while King Neb is sleeping, he wakes up so troubled. In panel 3, we're gonna draw King Neb in his pajamas talking to his advisors. I wonder what kind of pajamas he wears. Anyways, he says to his advisors, listen guys, I just had this really troubling dream and I want you to interpret it. But first, I want you to tell me what my dream was. The king's advisors almost laugh at him. How silly of King Neb. His advisors say to him, King, no one on earth could possibly tell you what you have dreamed about. He was furious with this answer. He needed to know what his dream was about. So he ordered all his advisors to be killed. And that included Daniel and his 3 friends. When Daniel heard about this, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and him prayed all night. They begged the Lord to reveal to Daniel what the dream was and what it was about. All night they prayed, you guys, and guess what happened? God told Daniel what the dream was. So as soon as he could, Daniel went to King Nebuchadnezzar and explained to him what the dream was. In panel number 4, you're gonna draw a gold statue. Daniel explained to the king that the dream was a giant statue and the head of the statue was made of pure gold. The chest and the arms were made of silver, and the stomach and thighs were made of bronze, and the legs were made of iron, the feet of clay. Suddenly, a giant rock crashed into the statue. Make sure you draw a giant rock crashing in the statue. But now, Daniel needs to prove that he knows what this dream means. He says to the king, King, the head of gold on the statue represents your kingdom. All these lesser kingdoms are going to try to come and take over you. But someday, God is going to demolish all these kingdoms and set up one big kingdom that is going to rule forever. The king could not believe it. He said to Daniel, surely your God is the one true God. He gave you this gift, just like God gave me this gift. And because Daniel allowed God to use his gift in him, his life and his friend's life were shared. And not only that, King Nebuchadnezzar put him in charge of all the people of Babylon. And he put him in charge of all the other wise men. That is so cool. Just because Daniel was faithful in the small things, God allowed him to be faithful in the big things. Wow. Talk about some fabulous talent. Who can remember some of the talents that Daniel and his friends had? They were strong, they were wise, they were handsome, and Daniel had the ability to interpret dreams. Daniel and his friends were talented, just like all of you are. But they didn't walk around saying, look at me, I'm talented, I'm the best, I'm the best. Absolutely not. What did they do? Daniel pointed back to God. Daniel gave God all the glory. When we give God the glory, it means that we give him the honor and praise. It means we give him the credit for all our gifts and all our talents, just like Daniel did. We put the spotlight on God. Our Bible verse is James 1:17. Every good and perfect gift is from God. You guys, James doesn't tell us that just some of our gifts come from God. He tells us in that Bible verse that all of our gifts come from God. All of our good and perfect gifts. That means our houses, our friends, our families, our favorite toys, they all come from God. Friends, we live in a really dark and sinful world that needs light. So when we shine the light back to God and we tell people that our gifts and our things come from God, that shows who God is. It shows that God is the one true God. Just like in the end of our story today, King Nebuchadnezzar declared, you're right, Daniel. God is the one true God because he gave you this gift. Friends, it's so important to give God glory. When you do something awesome, or when you have a fabulous talent, God wants us to give Him the glory and Him the honor and Him the praise. Trust me, I know it is so easy to want to take the credit for yourself. Sometimes you really feel awesome, and you are, but God has made you awesome. And when you tell other people that, they'll begin to wonder who this God is, and we'll get to shine light in this dark world. Friends, I cannot wait to see you in person. Be sure to tell your parents to sign you up for our November 8th live event. We're going to get to hang out at church in person. There's more information on our website. Bye, friends.